There we go.
Staying in, by the way.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Brothers Discuss. I am Alex.
And I am Chris.
And we are continuing with our marathon of the MCU. We've made it to what really should be the finale of Phase 2, but it isn't for some reason. And that is Avengers: Age of Ultron. So, yeah. Wow, dead air.
Yeah, it should be the finale, but whatever.
Yeah, so I rewatched this movie very recently, and I gotta say, I surprisingly enjoyed watching it again.
This is a movie that has really grown on me over time. Or, I don't know if I'd say like really, but like it's gotten shockingly better for me over time. Like this, when it came out, it was fun, but it was very forgettable. And just over time, over the years watching it, I still have a lot of fun watching this movie. And there are a lot of things that I really do like about it.
Mm-hmm. See, having spent some time away from it, I thought I was not going to like it as much because I do have criticisms of it, and I had it at the time, and I still have some problems with it, but there are certain things about it that are whatever, and I don't quite like. Okay, this has died down now, but I guess I should address it. I think the Hawkeye family stuff is lame. Sorry, everybody.
It's lame in this movie because it's kind of no relevance. It's just pure coincidence. But obviously, it's much better in Endgame because it serves an actual purpose for Hawkeye.
Mm-hmm. But, I warmed to it when I saw it for the first time just because they were finally giving Hawkeye some characterization.
Right.
It just doesn't do much for me here. But I think this is a good movie, really overstuffed, and there's just so much going on in this movie. So let's unpack that here. So I think that's part of the problem because unlike the first Avengers movie where it's packed full of stuff, I guess part of the gimmick in some ways is the fact that it's the coming together of all these characters that we've seen in other films, but this time it's like, okay, let's see how they come together again. Well, they don't even bother explaining that, but they do spend time introducing, the Maximoff twins and then later the Vision and stuff like that. Plus, they also set up future stuff, especially with Black Panther and a little bit of Thor Ragnarok and a little bit with Infinity War. They don't really set up much for Civil War, which is kind of funny to me.
Yeah, I mean, there's like teases, I guess, of Cap and Tony not getting along.
But Tony and Steve have an argument, but beyond that, no,
they have two arguments. They have one where they actually fight, the birth of Vision.
I don't know. I mean, if Civil War wasn't the next film, I don't think I would have thought anything of those scenes, I do think the Civil War moments in this film would have had more of an impact if the movie didn't end with the three being all happy and shaking hands. But I guess that's their way of doing one last hurrah with those characters before Civil War.
Yeah. That's kind of the whole point of this movie, really. It's just to set up Civil War. That's the big story.
I think the ultimate problem with the movie is it's okay to come off like a comic book because I feel like this film does in a lot of ways where it's continuing stories and whatnot. But when there's so much at play, like some things feel like they can be dropped. I'm not a fan of the Bruce Natasha romance. I thought I might have been years ago when I saw the first Avengers movie because they had a subtle relationship, but looking back on it, it's more of an understanding or a friendship or maybe it was a romantic thing back then, but I don't think they really make it work. And watching The Winter Soldier again, which is the best Marvel movie, I'm just putting that out there. Watching Natasha's chemistry with Captain America feels much more natural. It feels like it belongs. Props to Joss Whedon for sticking to his guns, but I don't think it works. And ultimately, I think that could have been dropped.
Honestly,
Um,
I'm gonna say the opposite. I
oh,
actually like the relationship between those two a lot more than I originally did.
okay.
Um, I like the moment where they're at the farm and she's talking about the past and like she's she has the line that's like, you think you're the only monster on the team, and that's the thing. I
Mhm.
also really like Bruce Banner in this movie. It was he's in the first Avengers, like his ability to control the Hulk. It was kind of symbolic in a way that like
Sure.
he doesn't have to be this giant monster, but when he's unhinged and like the Hulk is like really out there, and you just see how devastating that could be. I thought they did a pretty good job with that.
Interesting because I actually have a complete opposite reaction to
Oh
that.
my no, boy.
No, so like I'm just gonna say it. I'm actually sick of Mopey Hulk. I know that's kind of his thing, but my thing is he got over his problems in the first Avengers. Like that was his whole character arc. He embraced the monster and he was able to
Sure.
control it. And then we go back to like, oh, can we trust him? He's a bit unstable. Like I was just kind of hoping we wouldn't bother with
It's
that
more of
stuff.
it's more of like him actually becoming, a hero in a way, because even if the Hulk helped save the day in the Avengers, he's like the least heroic of the bunch. He's
Mhm.
still just this monster that defeats the bad guys.
Yeah, and like I know we
Yeah.
have to have all the characters going through things. It just felt like there were too many things going on. Maybe too many fans of certain characters to try and please. Like my thing is I think Age of Ultron needed thinning out because what really got me involved with the idea of the movie and seeing all the trailers, like it really felt like there was going to be some interesting story about Ultron and those characters. And I wanted a scene or a moment like where Cap, for instance, like turns around and says like, no, your idea of humanity destroying itself is wrong because yada, yada, yada. You don't really get those scenes. You just get the characters sort of irreverently going like, whatever, let's punch them because that's kind of funny and you kind of want to see that.
Yeah.
Um, and they do sort of bring it full circle with the scene of Vision and Ultron talking, which is a brilliant scene.
Right. Oh yeah, yeah.
That's probably my favorite moment in the movie.
I would agree. Yeah.
But there's just so much going on. It's so difficult to fit those pieces together and see one coherent movie to me.
Yeah. I would agree with that, but um I don't know. I kind of like the stuff between Nat and Banner. I do agree with you,
Mhm.
Hawkeye. He's got funnier lines in this movie, sure, but I don't
Mhm.
really care about his family at all.
Yeah, and I think another issue with, like I said, the whole Black Widow relationship, I don't think it works, and I don't think it's the fault of the actors. I think they tried really hard to make it work. I mean, whether or not chemistry is there, it's a forced plot point, I find, and the notion of comedy in the film as well, I think is a little overdone.
A little too much.
I thought the humor was very like I mean humor's in all the Marvel films. It's in most superhero films. That's fine, but when this film was advertised the way that it was, like remember that first trailer,
That
Like
yeah,
the whole like no strings on me. Like Ultron
that was
is at time
creepy.
yeah, Ultron is at times a scary character in the film. Like when he suddenly appears in that hospital, it's like scream and your entire staff dies. Like he's got those scary moments, and I'm not saying he shouldn't have those humorous moments because I mean, like good examples of that, like when he said smaller people, children. I lost the word there. Like that's amusing, and I kind of looked
Yeah.
at that at the time as similar to it's a lovely, lovely voice. It's similar to that where you kind of go, whoa, okay. But then he just kind of makes more jokes. I do think that was a little bit of it, I mean, some people don't mind that and that's cool, but I was hoping to get more scary robot Ultron looking to end the world. I mean, even though we,
Sure.
we got that, we had a lot of really kind of comedic moments, which is kind of weird to do with Ultron, but that's just my personal preference.
Yeah, I would agree because Ultron should be a more like straightforward villain because he's not human. he
Hmm.
should be cold because he literally is cold.
In every sense of the word.
Yeah.
Anything in particular you want to discuss right now?
Um, I just things I like.
Mhm.
I like Vision a lot in this movie,
Oh,
and
he's great.
yeah, and he's really strong throughout the MCU. He's definitely one of my favorite new characters. Newer, I guess. He's not that new anymore, but um, but yeah, he's great. The Maximoffs have both, even Quicksilver, they're both kind of grown on me in this movie. But again, I like Wanda just through her sequels in MCU.
Mhm.
Um,
We only
uh,
get like more of one of them, so
right.
um, it's interesting because I will say um, I do like the Vision quite a bit, but Wanda is interesting in that I never cared for her one bit until we get to WandaVision.
Really? Like not even
Yeah.
Civil War and Infinity War?
No, I didn't really have much of a reason to care in at all until we got to WandaVision, which I'll bring up more why I feel that is by the
Right.
time we do our WandaVision discussion.
Yeah. And
But
I would
she,
agree. Like she's the best in there in the MCU, but I still thought she was fine in this, and I liked her in the Russo brother movies.
mhm. It sounds like I'm being a little too negative on this film, but I do want to stress, I think the reason I enjoy this film overall is just because I think the fact that it is somehow as entertaining as it is, despite the fact that it is such an overstuffed movie, like I think says a lot.
It is
Um,
one of the most comic comic book movies of all time.
it is. I mean, whether we like get stuff like one of my favorite sequences is probably my favorite action sequence is when like the Ultron robots are driving the truck.
Yeah.
And
There's
they
like
have
the
to get
one
it's like
zoom in shot of a flying trailer above a city. That
yes,
gets me
that
every time.
like it's such a bizarre movie, but the fact that it's somehow like entertained is just a miracle onto itself. I feel it's a lot of fun. It's the kind of movie you can put on in the background and sort of revisit while you're doing other things.
Right.
But the big thing for me is that it doesn't feel like a movie. It felt like it relied on a lot of other things, and I don't want to be that guy because lots of people say it, but it did feel like there was a lot of in between connective tissue about this rather than this is a movie because the first Avengers is a great movie and that was kind of lightning in a bottle. Like, do you
Yeah.
remember before that movie came out how worried people were that they would even make those characters work on screen together and keep it
Yeah.
coherent?
Right. Yeah.
And they actually did that. So it was always a bit of a gamble going into this with Age of Ultron, but it feels like a lot of things get lost in the shuffle. It's still enjoyable. It's still a fun action movie, but it feels like a build up to a build up and not a movie.
Sure. Um, you want to talk about Captain America and how he's kind of boring in this movie?
Yeah, he is kind of
I
boring.
kind of get it though because he coming out of Winter Soldier though he's kind of already been through this. You know, this whole oversight is bad type of deal, and Tony
Mm-hmm.
really messed up, kind of like how Fury messed up with Insight. Um, but I guess it just kind of just give Tony the arc that Cap had in Winter Soldier,
Yeah.
even though it means nothing in the future because Tony does the same thing again in Spider-Man Far From Home. But that's a discussion for another time.
Oh no. Oh man. I will say though, I think it is funny to think back in 2012 when Avengers came out. Everyone was claiming to be this huge Joss Whedon fan, and now all that's gone.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It is gone. I mean, these people who claim to be Joss Whedon fans probably didn't know he had Much Ado About Nothing coming out that same year or have never seen Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog. It's funny how suddenly everyone was this huge Joss Whedon fan. And granted, he has done some stuff that I mean, most people have seen an episode of Buffy or heard someone bitch about Firefly's cancellation at some point, or Toy Story. He wrote Toy Story.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's not like he was this underground person that people will claim to know, but suddenly Joss Whedon became the guy that, oh, he didn't direct very well in Avengers 2. Like suddenly that happened. Everyone started hating him. And then,
Yeah.
so poor guy for having gone through that, but fuck him because he actually is a piece of shit now. And him doing Justice League is like far from far from being the worst thing he's done just in general.
Right. Yeah.
But it's funny, from what I gathered, the Hawkeye stuff was him, and the Thor going into the water stuff was Marvel. And I think most people have heard the story. I mean, whether or not it's 100% true, it's that whether you put that Thor stuff back in or will remove some of the Hawkeye family stuff. That, I guess, is part of the problem when you have a cinematic universe like this, where, like I said, this is a transitional film in a lot of ways, which is funny when we're dealing with the end of the world. But not only are you culminating everything that's happened in phase 2, except for Ant-Man, I guess, and you're also building towards the future as well as being a sequel to not only the single films of those characters, but especially Avengers. So there's a lot going on while also introducing new characters. And I guess if you're looking for a film to be a little more thought-provoking or to get a lot of character stuff, this definitely isn't that film. But can you watch it and have fun and enjoy this chapter of the lives of these characters? Absolutely. I think it's a great film in that sense. But if you're looking for something as groundbreaking as the first Avengers film or Winter Soldier or Guardians or what have you, I don't think you're going to find that in this film.
Yeah.
So it's like very much for me, as far I think as far as like where I would rank this film with the whole MCU, it's in the latter half of my rankings, and it's pretty low. Not gonna lie, it's not the worst thing in the MCU, but it's really not that high either. And I'll go. Yeah, I alluded to this earlier in the Thor: The Dark World podcast, and I still stand by this. I do prefer Thor: The Dark World over Age of Ultron. I still do after watching this.
I would disagree with you there, but yeah, you kind of got it with everything else. I definitely like this a lot more than you. I think that's
Probably
quite clear. But it's still for me easily the weakest Avengers movie. And as far as where I would rank it, it's like middle-ish, but leaning towards the bottom. Just on but yeah, it's all right.
Is there anything else we want to discuss about Age of Ultron
or Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
I actually don't have much to say about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because I don't remember.
This might be the last time, because when this movie came out, it's kind of like where I went away from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So like from this point on, I have no idea what happens in the rest of the show.
Like I know Coulson becomes Ghost Rider or something like that.
Yeah, I know that, but like
Nick Cage. Bring Nick Cage in the MCU, guys. Come on, bring him back, you cowards.
Be in the multiverse.
Why not? It's good. We know it's going to happen with the Spider-Man movie. The multiverse is going to happen. There's no. It will happen. I guarantee you. We'll see our dear friend Tobey Maguire once again, and Andrew Garfield.
We already know that Doc Ock is going to be the same Doc Ock.
Yeah, so they're clearly doing more. It's interesting that Marvel is now suddenly doing like very meta stuff within like the other like studios that own Marvel properties. You know, with WandaVision, we got Evan Peters playing what we believe to be Quicksilver, but it turned out he was just Ralph Boner. So they're at least acknowledging the fact that, yeah, we know about these guys, so we're just going to have them here, maybe but maybe not in the case of WandaVision. But with Spider-Man, it seems like, yeah, it feels like anything's possible. But my
Yeah.
hope is, yeah, they'll bring in Nick Cage to play Ghost Rider again. And I'm not going to shut up about Blade either. Like, let's get Blade back in the MCU. I think it's happening.
It is. I think it's a
He's
movie. I don't know if it's a show or a
yeah,
movie.
I think he's been recast by the guy. What's his face? It's the guy that voiced the Prowler in Into the Spider-Verse. I forget his name
Okay.
though. I think that's who they got to play Blade. I could be horribly wrong.
Okay.
I should probably research this real quick. The Prowler. Marshala Ali. How do you say his name? I feel bad. I feel bad. Hang on. Blade. Yeah, he is going to be Blade.
Okay.
So there we go. Anything else on Age of Ultron?
I think we got it. Yeah. I think that's it.
Yeah. How does just real quick, just genuinely curious, like where does Ultron himself rank with the MCU villains for you?
Ooh. That is kind of a tough question. I don't really know. But it's somewhat high, I guess. He's definitely more interesting, I'd say, than, I don't know, Malekith or Yellow Jacket.
Which we'll talk about in the next video. The particles are infecting your brain, even though he hasn't shrunk yet. I'll save that for the Ant-Man discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think James Spader does a really excellent job.
Oh, yeah.
With the performance, the motion capture he did. But unfortunately, I can't get my mind off of the Red Letter Media video, Ultron California.
Ultron California,
where they just took, for those who haven't watched that, it's go check it out. It's a great video that I think it was Mike Saclosa that put it together, where he just took clip like voice samples of Robert California from The Office. It just put it on Ultron, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ultron himself, I think. I do genuinely wish he was a little scarier
Right.
in this
Yeah.
film. Like if we got the Ultron that was promised to us in the trailers, I think he'd be pretty high up. But unfortunately, I don't think he's quite there. Like I prefer a whole bunch of other villains over him.
Sure.
Like, you know, I mean, obviously there's Loki, Killmonger, Thanos, usual suspects. But then I prefer the Kingpin from Daredevil as well.
Yeah.
Over Ultron, or the Purple Man from Jessica Jones as well.
Mm. Cosmetically, though, I'd say Ultron is kind of terrifying because it was like his first look as the broken Iron Legion guy. And then his mouth moves, which has never been seen ever.
Yeah, that was an interesting choice. I think he has teeth, doesn't he?
I think so.
That's weird. But anyways, what is your grade on Age of Ultron, as Vision calls him? I love how Vision says the word Ultron. He just says Ultron.
Yeah.
You are Ultron. Yeah. It's a subtle like ow. What is your grade on Disney's Marvel's The Avengers 2, The Age of Ultron?
It's like a very close 7, but I think I'd be very, very generous if I gave it a 7, but it's a really, really strong 6 for me.
It's funny because mine is also a 6, but it's more of the lower end of 6, if that makes sense. Look, we keep getting the same scores. What's up with that?
Yeah. Oh, well.
All right. Well, maybe Ant-Man will fix things up. We'll see, though.
Maybe.
So I guess until then, we'll see you all next time for our discussion of Ant-Man, the end of Phase 2 for some reason. Well, why is Ant-Man the end of Phase 2?
Because it came out the same year.
I think it would have been a much more fitting end of Phase 2 if it was actually Edgar Wright that directed it, but I digress.
Sure.
Let's close this out. See you next time for Ant-Man. Take care, everyone. Bye.